Before we get the groups to tell us what happened in the groups, and we're going to have that for the next 45 minutes, about 10 to 10 minutes or less for each group. Dr. Richard Akufu has got something to say briefly before we get on to the time for the groups to report back. So, Richard, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We want to appreciate everyone again for our time and our contributions in the working sessions, and we are looking forward to the feedback. We'll give the announcement of what will happen after this session, but a jury was formed last night, and they did hard work, and they come up with a short list, and they want to bring the short list to your attention and seek your votes, which will be needed tomorrow. So please relax and watch the screen, and we'll discuss afterwards. Relax. Not a problem at all. We want you to be in suspense a little bit.
Build up.
So, Priya says she's usually a very good judge when she has a little bit of beer at work. And so she put together a team with herself, with Dr. Kingsley as the head of the jury, and they have a short list of, is that 6? How many? How many? 6? All right, so it's still a surprise, and I will try not to talk much, otherwise I will let the surprise out of the bag. Sarah, nothing for you to worry about at all. we'll have once more. Hold on. Before once more, it is with full assurance of confidentiality and assurance that it only played in this room and ends in this room. But someone like Prof. Richard Phillips, he missed so much, I couldn't quantify for him how much he missed last night. And therefore, we'll want to play once more, and then we'll get back to the feedback from the sessions. But it's only for this room, and it gets deleted after this room. Thank you very much. Free to vote. Whoever you vote for actually is the winner. So this vote is individual vote, and whoever you decided to vote as the winner is really the winner for you. Thank you very much.
That was wonderful, Richard. Really nice to kill a bit of stress, isn't it, with that kind of dance here. So we're going to have a time for the group presentations. And there were 3 groups, 1, 2, 3. And so we'll take group 1. Group 1, I don't know who is representing group 1, but yeah, okay, Sandeep is doing that. Okay, that's nice. And Ruth, eh? Okay, Ruth from Camry and Dr. Sandeep.
Check. Yeah, good afternoon once again. For the first group, I would be summarizing the organogram or the structure, and then I will let my colleague Ruth to give a brief on the notes that she has made. We have structured the organogram like this with the coordinating center on the top, but then we also recognize the need for the satellite centers that are disease specific that would continuously interact with the coordinating center. There'll be an expert panel and WHO, of course, feeding into the whole process. And then these satellite centers will be connected with 1 to 2 national reference labs. I have put a bidirectional arrow in the middle. We'll be talking about it briefly. The reason is some of these national reference labs, which are already in the network and are capable of managing a specific disease, can be a satellite center themselves. So we have put that, but then below that we have put in-country networks, which are actually responsibility of the country and not the overarching Skin Entity LabNet. Skin Entity LabNet can play a role to support, maybe to some extent, those in-country networks, but the much higher level, larger network stands on the top like this. That's the current understanding. And I will let Ruth speak into the points that we had.
Okay, thank you. I'll continue from where Dr. Sandeep has stopped on the thoughts of Group 1 members and the implementation of the new network. So the second question was, do we need additional human resource? And the decision from the members was that WHO collaborating center or satellite centers may provide human resource as needed. Then the third question was official membership of new labs or current labs with endemic and with capacity to diagnose the new diseases. How will this be done? So this was decided on 2 ways. For satellite centers, a new lab should be able to harmonize the protocols for specific diseases. The second criteria is that the satellite center should have the ability to perform external quality assurance. And then the third is that WHO collaborative centers will be prioritized when selecting satellite centers. And for new labs, there were 2 criteria agreed on. They should have baseline requirements, key among them, ability to conduct PCRs. Then the second one is not such a stringent requirement, but they should be able to succeed in the EQA, first round of EQA, to join the network. However, even if they fail, they can be supported to join the network. Then the fourth one was the frequency of supervisory visits to be carried out for the addition laboratories or diseases. And the team members felt that 1 visit to any new lab that joins was sufficient. However, if specific training is required, an additional visit can be carried out. This is if new labs require for another visit, an additional visit. Then the fifth question was data collection. How will activity data be shared, monitored, and stored? The team members thought that responsibility will remain with the coordinating center, which is currently doing it. Continuation of what is happening with BU-LABNET will continue. Then new labs will feed into this. Then there will be country ownership of the data. Country ownership of the data will be considered and managed by the coordinating center. Then number 6, new structure of the advisory board and expert panel. Representatives of the new disease, frequency of virtual meetings. We felt that the advisory board and expert panel will have representation from all diseases and the satellite centers. However, the final decision will be made by the coordinating center. On the frequency of the virtual meetings, the members felt that the current frequency is once in 6 months, and this can be maintained. However, again, satellite centers can ask for meetings as need arises. Then the final question, any other ideas not mentioned in this TOR? We had 3. Inclusion of people affected in the advisory board. Secondly, inclusion of experts from other diseases as and when needed in the advisory board. And finally, financial model for sustaining the network. Along with the coordinating center, members felt that the satellite centers can raise funds to sustain the disease-specific activities. I would, if there's anything I've left out, maybe members can add.
I think in addition to that, one point that Dr. Barogi did is the country national programs and country level coordination for lab diagnosis. That's slightly outside of the purview of the network, but certainly would like to consider because samples should reach the lab. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. If there's no other points, thank you.
Would any questions for the group, please? Okay, there's a hand up. Sorry, Kinsley. Oh, okay. Please, you have the floor.
Okay. Thank you so much for the presentation. I see that the coordinating center is, the arrow is going straight to the national lab. Is there any interaction with coordinating center, with the specific centers? And also, is there any interaction with the satellite disease specific center with the national lab? And I don't exactly understand the position of the WHO collaborating centers.
Right. So the arrows actually go bidirectional in all directions because interaction should be maintained at all levels. Although expert panel and WHO may feed directly into the coordinating center, interaction will be done between the satellite centers, coordinating center, and the national reference labs. As far as WHO collaborating centers is concerned, priority will be given to WHO collaborating centers wherever available and possible to be included as satellite centers. That's the understanding.
Hello.
Lee,
Yes, thanks.
you have the
It's not it's just a remark that in addition to in-country country visits to look at baseline lab capacity, I thought they had developed a questionnaire that the labs can fill so that they provide all the baseline information, equipment, human resource infrastructure that can be used for initial assessment of their capacities and then actual visit as needed. Yeah.
Thank you, Kingsley. Michael?
Yeah, so a question actually that came up in our EQA group, and just to sort of understand. So at the moment, Santa Pasteur acts as the coordinating center and sends out all of the reagents that are used for routine diagnostic testing. No? You supply the reagents to the no, for BU currently. So in the new currently one laboratory sends out all of the diagnostic equipment, not just for the EQA, but for day-to-day PCR.
QA is prepared in CPC lab and sent from the shipment is come from CPC to the other lab. For the regions, it comes from Europe, so I order everything and I prepare each box for each country and I send to the lab because it's really hard to order directly from Europe to Africa.
No, for sure. So we were just discussing that in that when we, as more diseases come on board, what will be, so there's one thing which is the sending of the EQA kits that are being prepared either by the coordinating center, or however they would describe the satellite reference groups, for each EQA. And then there is the shipping out of the reagents, which currently you're doing for BU. So do we imagine that you will start doing that for all 5 diseases, or will there end up being, the WHO Collaborating Center for Leash will start supplying the PCR reagent? So that was a big question for us, like who will be supplying the reagents, especially once everything's harmonized across the network?
Yeah, I can. So it's a big question, but for sure, if we want to save money, we need to encourage just 1 shipment per year and per lab. So if a lab, for example, performs 3 qPCR for 3 skin entities, there is just the use of 1 type of kits and master mix. You just add several primers, each primers and probe for each disease. So it's not a lot of work, but it depends of how we can imagine the future for the skin entity LabNet. But for sure, it's really difficult to order even primers and probe when you are in Africa. It's not so easy. So we think we need to think about what is the cheapest and the more easy to do to perform this shipment of regions.
Yeah, I think just adding to it, Michael, the financial model, I was expecting that there'll be a question in the TOR on that for the first group, which was not there, so we included it in the other ideas. I think over time, we should also look for ways in which these satellite centers that are disease-specific should be able to manage these pieces themselves. I think to your second point, if a WHO collaborating center could really share reagents and manage the network in country or between countries for a specific disease, they should be able to do that. I think the CC sits at a level where they will deliver the model which they developed in BU to other diseases, not necessarily continuously ship materials indefinitely. So I think that transition is something we are looking at to have a more sustainable model for countries. But yeah, that's the current understanding, I would say.
I hope the question has been answered. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Any further questions for the group 1? Okay, I don't see any hand up. So let's clap for group 1 and yeah. Okay, group 2 this time. Please, who is taking it for group 2? Please. Oh, Michael. Oh, right. You don't have pretty slides.
Great. So in the EQA group, we sort of worked through a series of actions. So we started just by reviewing. So we started with the 4 candidate diseases, I guess, to be added to the LabNet. Cutaneous leishmaniasis, yaws, mycetoma, and leprosy, and reviewing which of those have an EQA scheme that could be the basis of a onward EQA scheme. So, and obviously focusing only on molecular diagnostics. So for example, there may be microscopic EQA for leishmaniasis diagnosis, but not PCR. So for cutaneous leishmaniasis and mycetoma, there are currently no existing EQA schemes. And in the context of research grants, there have been 1 run for leprosy, involving a small number of laboratories, and 1 run for yaws, also involving a small number of laboratories. So that's the sort of starting point, is that for at least 2 of the diseases, the EQA will need to be from scratch. whereas in 2 of the diseases there is maybe a template that we can use. So then we thought about what is the correct sample type. So as I'm sure everyone in the room is familiar with, the Borrelia ulcer EQA scheme uses real samples, real mycobacterium, that you actually extract. And the general preference was that where possible, future EQA schemes should also be based on the real pathogen, not just on an artificial plasmid, because that more accurately recreates the scenario that you are trying to replicate in an EQA. You really are extracting leprosy from a swab, or cutaneous leishmaniasis. You're not just extracting one plasmid with a perfect bit of the gene in it. That was felt to be probably viable, for cutaneous leishmaniasis and leprosy, although there are obviously challenges with the culture model for both of those. For yours, it was felt to be definitely not viable, and we would use definitely plasmids. And for mycetoma, it's probably viable for the organisms, but it's not viable for testing extraction from grains, which was considered to be an important part of any EQA scheme, because that's obviously a commonly tested sample type and you want to know that it performs on that. So it may be that people feel that the generation of samples from the current culture methods for CL and leprosy is very difficult to scale, in which case plasmids would be an alternative, because they are definitely more scalable and cheaper. But people's preference in the first instance was to try and have an EQA scheme that did involve the actual organism where that was possible. So that's, I guess, for discussion. We reflected on the sort of changes in the BU EQA scheme over the years. So originally, I'm sure you all remember that the EQA panel included both already extracted DNA and some samples to be extracted. And now it only involves samples to be extracted. It was felt that for new diseases, it would be worth, for the first couple of cycles, involving already extracted samples as well as samples to be extracted, because that lets you differentiate between simple failure of the PCR on the already clean DNA versus failure of the whole process. And in time, of course, if laboratories are performing very well on that, and we can see that there is no issue with simply the performance of the PCR, we can simplify, as has been done on BU over the last few years, to a fully integrated EQA. But probably for the first 2 years, you want to be sending both DNA, just to check that the PCR works, and samples to be extracting to check that the whole process works. So that's sort of steps 1 and 2 of the process. I think we weren't in this room, but we looked up through the ceiling and we saw the organogram that you were drawing, and we thought that it was unrealistic that one center would be the lead for the EQA for each of these diseases. Not only because of the workload that would be entailed, but for example, it doesn't probably make sense for Saint Pasteur to be an EQA lead for mycetoma, for several reasons, not least because of the number of patients, for example. And so we envisaged that there would be, although there would still be a coordinating center which would oversee the whole program, there would be a reference laboratory, satellite in your model, which would be the center of excellence and which would coordinate each of those EQAs. We recognize that different countries will have a shopping list that they want to pick from. So Côte d'Ivoire may want to sign up to yours and leprosy and Borrelia ulcer, and then in 2 years' time, maybe it turns out there is more mycetoma in Côte d'Ivoire, and so they may want to come on board. But it is unlikely that all of the countries will want to be in all of the EQAs simultaneously, nor that they will necessarily have the capacity to set up 3-4 new diagnostics and into the EQA. And it's important that they are, got on stream and performing well rather than simply trying to add more and more tests all the time. Final 2 points. These are, we sort of envisage two steps. So this is the first step. These are confirmatory diagnostic PCR EQAs, which is what we have for the Borrelia ulcer model at the moment. It was recognized that for some of the diseases, in particular probably yours as the first, we will need to think about EQA scheme for drug resistance testing. That may become true in the other diseases, but for yours in particular, because there is a significant risk of azithromycin resistance, and that is a major challenge for the program. Once we have a diagnostic EQA up and running, we will need to think about, can we do a drug resistance EQA, because monitoring for that will be important. So this is both, it may take a number of years for each of the diseases to come on board, and then after the diagnostic testing has come on board, expanding onwards to drug resistance testing. And finally, we talked a bit about whether or not we should go with the model that had been used originally for BU, which was, that the first few years of the scheme were run by a European reference laboratory, and then it was transferred to an African center that had performed well over several rounds of the EQA, versus going for a model of tech transfer right at the beginning. And there was, I think, strong feeling that a lot of work had been put into getting African leadership of the network, and we want to maintain African leadership of the network. And of course, European partners can come to whichever the satellite center that they can support is. So for example, if it's the London school that will support the yours satellite center, be that Saint Pasteur, be it somewhere in Ghana, be it somewhere else, we should be aiming up front from the first year as much as possible to be running the EQA from an African reference laboratory. Of course, that may take time, but we should not be trying to run 2-3 years of this in a European lab and then transfer it. We should be trying in the first year to run it from an African lab, even if that still means the European lab doing some of the work, but it's getting that. So that's sort of where we landed. So I'll summarize quickly. Preference for using real samples where they're possible, plasmids where they're not. I think that is one for discussion. It has pros and cons. It is more technically challenging, but it is also truer to life. Initially, DNA samples plus samples that you need to extract. Matching to your organogram, one African center leading each EQA scheme. Of course, it may be that some centers lead more than one, and they will need a partner, probably in Europe or elsewhere, to support that. A shopping list for countries to sign up to, and that they have to perform in order to be able to expand onwards from, and recognizing that we're talking about diagnostic PCR currently, but that the use cases may expand to include drug resistance once we have this first set up and running. That's, I think, everything from group 2, but please correct me if I missed anything.
Thank you, Michael, for that wonderful summary. I think there are questions coming, so don't run away from the podium. All right, so any questions for Michael, please? Group 2. Do you like their thoughts? Do you think they are putting us on the right track? Any thoughts? All right.
I think one clarifying statement, the idea is decentralizing harmonization and EQA. So satellite centers will be a part of the EQA, managing the EQA process together with CC, and CC alone will not manage EQAs of each disease. So that's the original thinking. So CC alone will not be managing the EQA. Satellite centers will also manage EQA for the diseases.
Yes. So what we imagine is that the satellite center working with the EQA,
Yes.
with the coordinating center for each disease, they will lead the harmonization process and then the EQA process. So let's just pretend for a second that it's Noguchi for yours, Noguchi will work with all of the other reference laboratories to standardize all of the SOPs that will be used for yours in collaboration with Saint Pasteur's, the coordinating center, and then Noguchi will oversee the EQA in collaboration with Saint Pasteur. If it's the Mycetoma Research Center, for example, for mycetoma, they will do the same process of helping all of the reference labs standardize their SOPs, harmonize all of the processes, and that kind of sort of comes to my point with Estelle that, you know, that will hopefully help us harmonize our shopping list as much as possible.
All right, thank you for that response. Any additional questions? Otherwise, let's clap for group 2. Thank you, Michael. And now group 3.
Hello. For those of you I haven't met, most of you, I'm Jessica Mesro, and when I'm not learning new dance moves, I'm the communications manager for American Leprosy Missions. Group 3 was discussing visibility and communications goals going forward for the network. And as a communications person, I want to say and compliment you, I love your website. Whoever the original designer and maintenance person is, thank you. I really like the website. It's easy to use, it's clear, I can find what I need, has lovely pictures. So my compliments to the original creators. It's wonderful and great to build on. Our group agreed that the goals for the website are to be a resource for training and for information about what the network produces, what the network is working on, to have that information easily accessible for others who are interested or for people who are involved in NTDs at all levels, from a national program to a researcher to another laboratory, wanting it to be a resource, wanting those who are interested in becoming a member or becoming a supporting partner to have easy access to information about those pathways, and making sure the website has up-to-date news about publications and any grants that the network has won, just keeping news and updates available. To that end, and to upkeep social media accounts, we came up with 2 ideas for how to maintain those things. First, we thought it would be a good idea to form a small media committee that includes communications personnel from member institutions. So the idea would be for, as you go home to your institutions, to contact your communications or media office and inquire if there is someone available to help you with intermittent maintenance on a website and social media accounts. And if we all do that, and you have names then that you can submit to the coordinating center, they can choose about 5 names to be part of a committee that shares responsibility for updating the website and for maintaining social media accounts. That way the burden isn't all on one person or on one member, and that way more of you have input into the content that is on the website and that's on the social media channels. And that committee, we envision, these imaginary people, we would like them to meet, say, quarterly with the coordinating center, with NUM4, to discuss news within the network, to discuss what a social media plan for that quarter might look like, again, to ease the burden on everyone involved, to keep it collaborative, and to keep everyone informed so that the information you want to be visible is happening and that everyone's on board with it. We also think, reviewing the communications goals that you created in your last meeting, we looked at that document, and you had 6 things that you wanted to focus on: the website, social media accounts, publications, the network's presence at large international meetings like WHO, NNN, Core NTD, those venues, creating flyers, posters, or collateral for those meetings, and then introducing webinars on different topics that the network creates and invites people to. So we've covered the website, social media. This new media committee would be able to handle a lot of these items. Website and social were the first two pieces. Publications are included on the website right now, and if someone is regularly maintaining that, then that checks off that box as well. You're already attending large international meetings. Bravo. You've now completed 4 items. And in terms of the last two pieces, in addition to the media committee, given the time and dedication that you had in your list from the last meeting of what you want communications to look like, it still seems like a good idea to hire a dedicated communications manager or a media coordinator through the coordinating center, but someone who is spending dedicated time on communications for the network. Because the media committee, comprised from people from your institutions, can do basic maintenance, but in terms of being proactive in creating content or writing stories or emailing all of you to find out what recent publications you have or who's received a grant, that's a full-time job, and I know because it's mine. So, so in addition to forming a committee, it still does seem advisable to hire a full-time communications manager. And lastly, as one of the first tasks that that manager or that this committee would start to do, we thought it would be a good idea to create guidelines, a set of guidelines for how members and how external partners, how you want them to discuss the network's activities and the network's research. So for example, having a standard citation or byline that's included on any resource you produce, that you ask people to use if they are using any of your documents, photos, anything like that. Having standard language that supporting partners use when we talk about your work on our website or in our annual reports, that this new body, this media committee, in consultation with the coordinating center and with whoever you think is appropriate, that they would create these guidelines so that we're all aware this is how we discuss the network, this is the language we use, this is the context that we would use these pieces for. And then there's clarity. That way, one laboratory doesn't refer to the network in one way, one supporting partner doesn't describe a project in a different way. That way there's consistency across the board. And those were our suggestions from Group 3. Thank you.
Jessica, any questions for Group 3? Mind you, I was in Group 3. Okay, Kingsley.
Well, thank you for the discussions and the reports. The communication, at least from our experience, it's a dynamic process. It's not static. So even the website, if it is static, it's boring. You go there 1, 2, you may not go there again. So people have to be, those involved in maintaining and keeping it, have to be very active in updating it and also providing news. But the news, the person who write the news or post the news, get the basic information from others. So all of us, our institutions involved in the network, if there are any news items emanating from your institutions, you have to feed that into the network communication and the coordinating center for also them to post. And then we should proactively use our social media network, including LinkedIn. I follow some of you, so from time to time I try to check how active you are. But most of you are not active on LinkedIn. So please, if you have created an account, don't let it be dormant. Make good use of it. Numfor, you have one for the network, both all of the handles. So, but we have to provide the news items to feed into the social media. I would also like to remind all that we have created the advocacy communication working group on the skin entities in general, and this group can also be helpful in promoting the work of the LABNet. But again, they need news, and they have some expertise that they can contribute. So we'll see how to also link the advocacy communication work of the BU-LABNet to this wider skin entity to see how we can promote skin entities in general moving forward. Yeah, but thank you for all the ideas. Yeah.
Thank you for your suggestions. Any other hands up or contribution, suggestions? All right, Jessica, well done. Thank you very much. Or one more group. This is a group that met over lunch. And I've not forgotten about you. So I think it's your turn now. I think Estelle is going to do justice to that. Thank you.
This one. It's not working. Ah, yes. Is it working? Okay, wow. So we try to summarize. Je pense que je vais parler en français. Vous pouvez mettre vos écouteurs. Donc nous avons essayé de résumer ce que nous avons appris des présentations de ce matin sur le processus d'harmonisation qui a lieu pour la lèpre, la leishmaniose cutanée, le pian et le mycétome. Donc première ligne, ça concerne le type d'échantillon qui peut être analysé. Donc pour le BU, ça n'a pas changé, ce sont les écouvillons et les sérosités. Pour la lèpre, on peut travailler à partir de sucs dermiques, de biopsie ou d'écouvillons nasaux. Pour la la leishmaniose cutanée à partir de biopsie ou de sang, peut-être d'écouvillons. Pour le pian, donc ce qui était actuellement fait, c'était de placer directement les écouvillons dans un tampon de Lise. Et donc actuellement est en évaluation le fait d'utiliser des écouvillons qui restent secs et qui n'ont pas besoin d'être placés dans une solution de transport. Et pour le mycétome, Wendy nous a montré que la sérosité fonctionnait aussi bien pour récupérer les grains que les biopsies. Donc on voit qu'on travaille pour les 5 skin entities sur presque le même type d'échantillon, à savoir est-ce que les biopsies sont considérées comme invasives ou non, et dans quel pays il est facile ou non, plus ou moins facile de réaliser ce type d'échantillon. Concernant l'extraction d'ADN, donc on a vu que pour l'ulcère de Burley, le kit utilisé était Genolize et que l'évaluation du kit de chez Expedit montre des performances similaires. Pour la lèpre, on a vu que ce kit Genolize pouvait être utilisé aussi bien que le kit Expedit. Pour la leishmaniose cutanée, il semble que Genolize et Expedit sont aussi performants que leur... c'est pas Chiagen, mais c'est similaire que Chiagen. Pour le pian, Genolize est en évaluation, mais semble fonctionner aussi bien que Chiagen. Et pour le mycétome, c'est un peu plus compliqué, mais la solution, peut-être qu'on tend vers une solution Expedit, Biomime. On ne sait pas encore, c'est en train d'être évalué. Pour l'utilisation du master mix de QPCR, donc pour BU et Leprosy, le kit de chez Solis Biodine fonctionne bien. C'est en évaluation pour la leishmaniose cutanée. Ça fonctionne aussi bien pour le pian et pour le mycétome. Ça va être évalué plus tard. Alors maintenant, concernant les pays, donc si on part du BU-LABNET, il y a 11 laboratoires dans 9 pays. Et donc la grande question, c'est vers quoi va tendre le Skin Entities LabNet. Donc en discutant avec les différents partenaires concernant la lèpre, donc il y a déjà le Bénin et le Cameroun qui ont évalué et validé la méthode. Est-ce qu'on introduit d'autres laboratoires du BU-LABNET, plus d'autres labos qui ne sont pas déjà dans le BU-LABNET? Pour la leishmaniose cutanée, au vu des datas épidémiologiques, on peut penser aux pays comme le Cameroun, le Ghana, le Togo, la Côte d'Ivoire. Alors j'ai mis 3 petits points, donc si j'ai pas tout mis, veuillez m'en excuser. Ça va. Si vous n'êtes pas là, ça ne veut pas dire que vous n'allez pas le faire. Hein. Pour le pian, c'est pareil, avec la même idée de regarder l'épidémiologie, le nombre de cas déjà rapportés dans chacun des pays du BU-LABNET, et d'intégrer en priorité ces pays où l'épidémiologie est déjà connue. Et pour le mycétome, comme nous a présenté Wendy tout à l'heure, elle travaille et elle a accès, et il y a des patients mycétomes au Soudan et aussi au Sénégal. Donc pourquoi pas intégrer ces 2 labos dans le Skin Entities LabNet. Alors, concernant une idée sur le nombre de QPCR, donc pour avoir une idée, pour le réseau BU-LABNET, on réalise entre 1500 et 2500 QPCR par an. Donc on a essayé d'imaginer pour les autres skin entities, quel pourrait être l'ordre de grandeur de ces nombres de PCR. Alors, j'ai pas vraiment d'idée pour la lèpre. Je sais juste qu'au Bénin, ils reçoivent une 50aine de prélèvements. J'ai pas d'idée pour les autres pays. Pour la leishmaniose cutanée, on a parlé d'environ 1000 QPCR. Pareil pour le pian et la même chose pour le mycétome. Alors c'est vraiment une fourchette à prendre avec des pincettes, hein. Mais c'est juste pour avoir une première idée donc, de qu'est-ce qu'on imagine recevoir dans ces laboratoires. Et pourquoi on fait ça? C'est pour essayer d'imaginer un budget. Donc ici est représenté ce que coûte en réactif chaque année pour le réseau BU-LABNET. Donc c'est 18 000 €, incluant le coût de l'envoi DHL. Alors j'ai mis une moyenne de 1 700 € par labo, mais ça veut un peu rien dire, parce qu'en fait on adapte la quantité par rapport à leur activité. Donc si on prend l'exemple de la lèpre, évidemment ça va dépendre du nombre de laboratoires qui va s'inscrire dans ce diagnostic. Si on garde Genolyze et Universal Mix comme réactifs, finalement il n'y a plus que les primers et les probes à rajouter dans l'envoi. Donc pour 10 laboratoires, c'est à peu près 3 000 €. Et ensuite, il y a la question des tests de résistance qui sont à 500 € pour 12 échantillons. Et donc ensuite, pour le budget, c'est assez difficile à estimer, hein, mais par exemple, vous avez l'idée d'environ 1000 QPCR. Donc finalement, on va pas, enfin, ça vous donne un peu une idée du coût PCR si on garde Genolyze et le kit universal QPCR Mix, qui est vraiment peu cher comparé à tous les autres produits qu'on trouve sur le marché. Voilà. Il y a une dernière ligne qu'on ne voit pas. C'était sur ce qui concernait l'harmonisation du gène cible de la QPCR. Donc en fait, pour l'ulcère de Buruli, c'est bien IS2404. Pour la lèpre, c'est RLEP. Pour CL, c'est le ribosomal small unit S8. En fait, ce qui posait problème, c'est pour IOS, où il y a encore 3 cibles qui sont évaluées, et il faudra harmoniser sur quelle cible, unique cible, vise la QPCR. Et pour finir, on a fait une ligne sur les besoins actuels pour finir ce processus d'harmonisation. Donc pour BU, c'est terminé. Pour la lèpre, on n'a pas de besoin actuel. Donc après, il reste les laboratoires de Ravière, de Michael et de Wendy, à savoir est-ce qu'ils ont besoin de financement pour finir les processus d'harmonisation. Et enfin, on a un peu parlé de la surveillance sentinelle, de la résistance aux antibiotiques. Et donc on voit qu'il y a pour 2 maladies, léprosie et 3 maladies, pardon, léprosie, pian et mycétome. On peut se poser, alors pour la lèpre, c'est déjà inclus dans le processus, mais Michael nous a bien averti que la prochaine étape pour le pian sera de surveiller cette résistance, cette apparition de la résistance à l'antibiotique. Voilà. J'ai fini de résumer.
That's wonderful, work. So I think. we can take questions or contributions, please. Any hands up? Okay, please.
Thank you. Will you leave this open for contributions? For example, for CL, the sample should not be blood, for sure. Okay, that's something we need to be
Okay.
removed, and then type of sample we need some discussion maybe to identify the best one, or a combination of sampling methods. And for the country Sudan, maybe missing in CL.
Okay.
I've just shared on the WhatsApp group regarding the samples from recognizing neglected tropical disease through changes in the skin. I've shared the screenshot. I can share the document as well. The things that you're raising, I think there's a document which comprises what sample and which one, so maybe we can adapt it.
Okay.
I think I saw one more hand. Or am I wrong? Okay, Michael.
I was looking at your data and also comparing to the presentation that Wendy gave in the morning. And I wanted to find out, she mentioned that the harmonization is ongoing. But in her presentation, in the analysis they've done so far, they didn't seem to use the current region that we are using, the BU-LABNet. So is it something that they plan to use going forward? Like the generalized for the extraction?
So from my system, I think, yeah, we cannot easily think that generalize will work. Yeah.
So I asked, for the qPCR we're currently running, we use the Rush one. So I'm going to test if the same tech enzymes also work. For DNA extraction, we use the Zymo kit as a standard kit. I just obtained the Genolyze kit, so I'm going to test if that works for DNA extraction too. But our golden standard at the moment is the Zymo kit with bead beating.
Okay, so maybe I think if you also modify the Genolyze extraction kit and introduce maybe a bead beating step, maybe that might help. But you should try it and see.
Yes, but also with the BioMem kits and with the Expedite kits, we also played around with bead beating, and there it appeared not to be necessary, but it could well be that with Genolyze it's necessary. We typically do this in the tissuelizer for QIAGEN, but we also saw with the Zymo kit that it can work on a normal vortex mixer if you don't have the QIAGEN tissuelizer. So that's promising at least.
Dr. Sages.
Okay, thank you. Just some precision about the target used for the diagnosis of yours. We know that we also do the differential diagnosis with the detection of H-degree. That's why we have two targets. And the third target is generally for the detection of RNA-sp, which evaluate the quality of sample and the absence of inhibitors. That's why we have three. When we were developing the assay for the previous project, there were three targets. One for the quality of sample, the second one for the detection of Treponema pallidum, and the third one for detection of Haemophilus ducreyi. And another aspects I want to make some precision is that at the level of harmonization, we are now, the second step of our harmonization for yours is to compare extraction kit from dry swabs, which is not available now. This is something we need financial support for it, and also for reagent to continue maybe the step of multiplexing, which require lot of reagents. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think there are no further questions coming. No hand up. So thank you everybody for the. Oh, there's a hand behind me.
Just a brief one. So, whilst we are thinking about all this harmonization process, are we also, are these plans set up to be singleplex assays, or there are plans to make some of them multiplex? So that is what I'm looking at, because if we go to the field and you take a wound swab, you know, sometimes you are not, the clinical presentation is, you are not too clear whether it's BU is yours or it could be something else. So are there plans to think of multiplexing, or all these assays are set as single assays?
Michael, my thinking is that it's work in progress, and the ones that can be multiplexed will be multiplexed. Am I right? Maybe I think my thinking, yes. And so I think that would be the best approach to make things implementation-wise very easy. So I think that's what we are looking at achieving. Those that can be multiplexed, yes. Those that cannot be will be created as single assays. And then we work with it. Yeah. Okay, so I think it's still work in progress.
I will add to it. Just would you want to add something? So I think that's a good point, Michael. But it's a research question. I think that's something that CC and the centers connected should slowly work towards and take it as a research area, explore and quickly come up with some solutions so that multiplexing can be done.
So I think it should be good also to know, according to the country, how many programs we are talking of. Because there will be some country where there is only one program with all these diseases, and in other country you are talking to 3 or 4 persons. So I think we have also to know exactly how many programs are in different countries.
I think, Sarah, what could also happen is that we could have the multiplex platform. The countries that have got multiple diseases will use that one. If the country has just got only one of the disease, then they will use the single. Yeah, it's not mixed. Okay, okay.
But it is easier to talk for only one person than to 4 people. So, but for multiplex, there is no problem. Yeah.
So at this point, I think we've done a lot of good work. Coming up with all the ideas, we've all contributed, and I think your suggestions will still be welcome to the coordinating center to put all these together. So we still have one more day. If you are sleeping and you have a little vision on a better approach to all that we've been talking about, then please come in the morning and hand it over to Sarah, and then we can incorporate the ideas into what we've been saying so far. So I think on the whole, it's been a good day, but we are not done yet. We are allowed, we have earned our coffee now. We're supposed to have a coffee break, brief coffee break, and then we come back for the general discussions and the conclusions, and then that's okay. All right, so I'm being corrected, so let me drive you to the right direction. Actually, there is going to be a cocktail after we are done. So you will not have the coffee or whatever. We'll just stretch a little bit because I've been warned that there's a huge package for us and some of us may not be able to accommodate it if we go in this time. So let's just stretch for 10 minutes and come back and try and round up, and then there'll be a cocktail downstairs. And yeah, so it will be, the cocktail will be after the tour. So we'll come and do our conclusions and everything, then the tour, and then the cocktail. So stretch a little bit, 10 minutes. Don't go too far. Just stretch, and then 10 minutes, and then we yeah.